Welcome you all in this MOOC course on the topic Renewable Energy Technologies and their uses. Today I am going to discuss about the greenhouse effect, the environmental impacts of energy conversion technologies. I am Rizwan, Professor, Department of Electrical Engineering, Delhi Technological University, Delhi. The introduction of this topic, sources of greenhouse gas emissions, their solutions to increasing greenhouse effect, consequences and how it can be reduced with the help of renewable energy technologies. As you know, the demand of electrical energy is increasing drastically due to rapid industrialization, invention in new technologies, urbanization and increasing household consumption, as well as the comfort zone of the people is also increasing. So in this case, we have to use more energy, and if we are using more energy, it means that we are creating more pollutions as well as the greenhouse gas emissions. Still, there is a gap between demand and supply in increasing, and it is increasing day by day to rapid depletion of fossil fuels. It also becoming the source of greenhouse gas emissions. The communities around the world are suffering from the consequences of global warming due to greenhouse gas emissions. As you know that the transport sector is one of the major contributor in all the countries and is also responsible for the production of considerable amount of greenhouse gas emissions, particularly in case of Delhi, India, is 37.9 million ton of CO2 emissions. If you see this table, in this table you can see the country-wise CO2 emission and the city-wise CO2 emission on the right hand side. You can see with the help of this table, the China is the major contributor of CO2 emissions and they are producing 27.21% of the total CO2 emissions in the world. And at number 2, you can see US is contributing around 15% of the total emissions. And we are at number 3, we are also contributing around 7% of the CO2 emissions in the global scenario. The Russia at number 4, they are contributing 4.68, Japan 3.33, Germany 2.21, Iran 1.86, Saudi Arabia 1.76, South Korea 1.7 and Canada 1.58. So these are the countries who are contributing the CO2 emissions at a large scale. And as I told you before, the China is at number 1 and we are at number 3. As far as the cities are concerned, so you can see the CO2 emissions from the different cities, like the first one is Frankfurt, this is in USA, and they are contributing 13.7%, and Beijing 10.8%, Toronto 9.5%, New York City 7.9%, Cape Town 7.6%, London 6.2%, Tokyo 4.9%, and Delhi, if you talk about Delhi, we are contributing 2.2% in terms of the cities in the different countries. Here I am showing the typical data of greenhouse gas emissions in different countries with the help of this diagram. So this is the same data that we have used in the earlier table, table 1, but here you can see that with the help of this bar diagram, the China is at top position and we are at number 3. Similarly, if you see the city-wise, then you can see the Frankfurt at number 1 and we are in the last, but in case of India, we are contributing, particularly Delhi is contributing a lot of emissions. So what are the major greenhouse gases? The gases that have the characteristics of a greenhouse are known as greenhouse gases. They do not absorb visible light from the sun, but infrared radiation emitted by the Earth's surface is absorbed. So these gases are referred to as greenhouse gases. So some of the examples like carbon dioxide, halogen gases like chlorofluorocarbons, nitrogen oxides, methane, etc. are the major greenhouse gases. If you see the contribution of the different greenhouse gases production from the energy point of view, then you can see the carbon dioxide is about 64%, methane is 19%, chlorofluorocarbons is 11%, nitrogen oxide or nitrous oxide is 6%, and others is only 0.4%. the sources of greenhouse gases, because it is very important to see, means what are the various sources from which we are getting these greenhouse gases. So we have to control all these greenhouse gases. First of all, we have to identify the sources of greenhouse emissions. So in case of India, as you know that more than 60% of the power is generated from the thermal power stations, and they are contributing a lot of emissions in terms of CO2, in terms of SOx, in terms of NOx, and there are mineral oil emitting a huge amount of carbon dioxide. So there are numerous factories and industrial chimney waste also, they are contributing a lot of greenhouse gases. Automobile industry, as I told you before, automobile industry is one of the major contributor in case of greenhouse gases. Deforestation, nowadays we are deforesting the plants. So deforestation and burning of fossil fuels is also the one of the major contributor in case of greenhouse gas emissions. If you see the source wise of greenhouse gas emissions, so you can see in terms of percentage wise emissions of greenhouse gases from different sources. As I told you, from fossil fuels, they are the major contributors. Around half of the greenhouse gas emissions are coming from the fossil fuels. Agricultural 13%, deforestation 14%, and industry we are getting 2.4%. So this is the global energy related carbon dioxide emissions since 1990 to 2018, which the data which is available recently. Now we can see what are the effects of greenhouse gas emissions. So it is there is a lot of impacts due to these greenhouse gas emissions. There is a global warming and climate change, rise of sea level, disruption of the water level, challenges to agriculture and the food supply, effect on the ozone layer, and smog pollution. So these are the adverse effect of the greenhouse gas emissions. So if there are adverse effects, then we should know how we can control the greenhouse gas effects or the emissions. So in this case, we have to opt the alternative sources of energy for the power generation, the advanced and efficient technology for reducing emissions from fossil fuels, avoid the burning of fossil fuels and household residues, reduction of the use of chlorofluorocarbons, and pollution should be controlled. So these are the ways by which we can reduce the greenhouse gas emissions, and there are some consequences. As a result, the change of climate has occurred, which threats the sustainability of life in terms of more drought and floods, more terrible storms, many more hot days, more diseases like malaria and dengue. It could be the one of the cause due to the large amount of greenhouse gas emissions. The impacts of ecosystem would change the crop production potential of a region, especially Asia, Africa, South and Central America. Who is responsible for this? So the responsible persons or the responsible, they are the wealthy countries. They are the responsible for climate changes because the comfort zone or the energy requirement, per capita energy consumption in these countries is very high. So global energy consumption and CO2 emissions have increased 3 times between 1950 to 1985, and in 1990, out of 21 billion tons of global emissions, 14 billion tons were emitted by rich countries or wealthy countries only. US alone emitted 5 billion tons of carbon, and India emits 150 million tons. So you can see from where we are getting these greenhouse gas emissions. As I told you before, how it can be reduced. So the one of the option, the contributor, the main contributor is the fossil fuels. So we have to replace the fossil fuels with some alternative energy resources, and renewable energy technologies and renewable energy resources are the one we can reduce these greenhouse gas emissions significantly. So the total demand for electricity, India is expected to cross 9,50,000 megawatt by 2030, and there is substantial contribution would be from renewable energy. And if we are going to continue the thermal power plants, then there will be a worst case in the Indian scenario, these greenhouse gases emissions will increase drastically. That's why the government of India is also planning to adopt renewable energy based technologies for power generation. The solution to this challenge lies in maximizing the utilization of renewable energy resources for meeting our energy demands. So as you know, the major types of renewable energy resources include solar, wind, hydro and biomass, all of which have huge potential to meet the future energy challenges. So the power generation from renewable energy resources has gained more attention due to various environmental issues like pollution, global warming, greenhouse gas emissions, etc., etc. So what is the motivation why we are looking for the renewable energy resources exploitation? This includes the environmental concerns, a diminishing of fossil fuels, sustainable development, energy security, reliable power in remote locations, increased economic growth and new employment opportunities, intensify human welfare as well as contribution towards climate safe future, etc. So this is the main motivation behind the renewable energy resource adoption. Means these are the various advantages, or these are the various features, means we can see and we can reduce the greenhouse gas emissions with the help of the adoption of renewable energy technologies. So here you can also see with the help of this figure. So there is a energy axis, energy security, because energy security is one of the major concern in every country. Social and economic development is another parameters. Also increase the social and economic development with the help of this renewable energy technologies. And the climate change we are talking about today, we are talking about the climate change mitigation and reduction of environmental and health impacts. So these are the some of the important parameters for any country, for any developing country or for any developed country. With the help of these renewable energy technologies, by using these renewable energy technologies, we would be able to achieve all these important parameters, and greenhouse emissions is one of the important parameter among the four. So we were talking about the renewable energy technologies. Here we are going to discuss how we can use the energy conversion technologies. So the major renewable energy technologies includes the hydropower. Mainly it is used for power generation, the modern biomass, heat and power generation, pyrolysis, gasification and digestion. As far as geothermal is concerned, so we can utilize the geothermal for urban heating, power generation, hydrothermal, hot dry rock. As far as the solar is concerned, so the solar and wind energy technologies are the major contributors in terms of the power generation. So with the help of solar energy based technologies, we can utilize solar energy for various applications. And some of the important applications are mentioned here. We can utilize the solar energy for power generation, whether it could be in terms of photovoltaic based power generation or thermal power generation. Apart from this, we can also use the solar energy for various solar energy based technologies like water heaters, solar and home systems, solar dryers, solar cookers. So if you see the Indian power sector, in this case, we are contributing about 25% of the total installed capacity from the renewable energy resources, and solar energy is one, means which is contributing a major amount of power from solar energy based technologies. As far as the wind energy is concerned, so this is the number 2, and we are contributing about 40% of the contribution from the renewable energy resources in terms of power generations. So as far as the usage is concerned, so we are utilizing the wind energy conversion technologies for power generation, wind generators, windmills and water pumping application. So this water pumping application is very important, particularly for agricultural uses, as we know that India is having about 70% of the agricultural land, and this water pumping is one of the important application for the uses in agricultural fields. The wave and tide, there are numerous design, barrage and tidal stream. So these are some of the important and renewable energy resources, and these we have discussed some of the possible applications from these renewable energy resources. As a conclusion, because we have discussed today about the greenhouse gas emissions, so now I'm concluding my lecture here. So because of the seriousness of the problem, immediate action is required, particularly those that are cost effective and appropriate for other environmental and economic reasons. All government and industries should adhere to a rigid policy of efficient carbon-based primary energy consumption, fuel switching, and the use of renewable energy resources. The reduced greenhouse gas emissions from energy production must be accompanied with steps to prevent greenhouse gas emissions from other sources. Each country endeavor to minimize CO2 emissions should be guided by its technological skills, economic prosperity, and the adoption of alternative energy resources like renewable energy technologies. Developed countries should assist the developing countries in their attempts to reduce the CO2 emissions. So these are the references, means you can go through these references for if you want to learn more about this topic. So in the last, now I would like to tell you means what we have learned in this presentation. So today we learned about the introduction of greenhouse effect, then sources of greenhouse gas emissions, solution to increasing greenhouse effect and their consequences, and how we can reduce the greenhouse gas emissions by adopting the renewable energy technologies. And we have seen that there is a tremendous opportunities by adopting the renewable energy technologies for the reduction of greenhouse gas emissions. So thank you very much to all. Thank you.